Welcome back, everybody. Today, we're taking a look at another case study: why modern life makes people feel constantly tired, even when they're doing everything right. Today, I am joined by my associate.
Hello, how's it going?
Hello, thank you for being here. Now, why do so many people feel exhausted, even when they aren't doing anything wrong?
It's a good question. I think that has to do with history. I think a lot of it comes down to evolution. How, let's say, our parents, when they used to work or still work at, let's say, their stable job, and that stable job provides income to provide food on the table, they only had to work that one job, you know, whether they were if the man was working or the woman was working or both were working, they only had to work that one job.
The
Now,
cost of living was cheaper back then.
exactly. Nowadays, it's almost double that. People have to work double shifts, overtime, start side hustles, just do anything to just double how it was. And that's because the cost of goods, as you said, the cost of living has increased, which in turn makes people more exhausted and more overworked. So, yet, fatigue is one of the most common complaints today, but I want to direct it to asking if it's about the laziness in people or the discipline.
That is a great question. Laziness or discipline? I believe that neither has anything to do with it. What I believe is people are unsure of what to do with the extra time that they are given, whether that be in between shifts, the few hours they have after work, the few hours they have before work.
Okay, interesting. And I, and I say a lot of people are doing what they're supposed to do, but yet they still feel worn down. I mean, is that what do you think? You think that's correct, right?
Well, looking on my research, I have come to the conclusion that chronic fatigue and burnout complaints are rising. So that is a factor in why people feel worn down even when they're doing what they're supposed to do.
Oh yeah, no, 100%. And I think so. So fatigue is one of them. Fatigue. And where does fatigue come from? Fatigue comes from if you don't get enough sleep. And then we also researched earlier today that sleep duration has dramatically collapsed. So in the recent years, the amount of people sleep collapsed. The quality they get during sleep collapsed. And what is another reason for that? Stress. People cannot sleep for long hours and people can't have deep sleep because they're stressed, either about money, family, health, whatever it is. In our last video, we talked about how high health anxiety was, right? From increased
Right.
from a 30 to a 90% now. So it's insane. So I want to go into the fact what was the next idea that we researched again?
It was how stress is no longer an acute issue. It is now becoming a low grade and constant problem.
Yeah, that's what it was. And acute has as you how would you explain acute versus low grade?
Acute, put in simpler terms, let's say at the beginning of the week, you're stressed because you have a test on Monday. And then end of the week, you're stressed because you're not sure what to do with your friends after school. Now it's been expanded
Okay.
as low grade and constant. What I mean by that is now, oh, am I going to make it to work on time? Oh, do I have enough to make ends meet?
Yeah.
That's what I mean by constant stress opposed to acute stress.
Yeah. No, I that's a great analogy. I think acute, because as we grow up, a big stress of our life was tests, homework, and stuff like that. Now it's still stress, but it's bigger. It's like work, as you were mentioning, and it's constant too because it's every day and every minute of the day. So
Exactly.
the key insight about this topic is that the body actually evolved for stress and recovery cycles, but modern life provides stress without the recovery. So that gets down into our next topic, which we want to talk about, which is the invisible energy drain. And the reason it's invisible is because a lot of people cannot notice it. And that's what's leading to these spikes in health anxiety, leading to spikes in burnout and everything.
And I'm assuming what you mean by people don't notice it is these things happen every day and has become a part of our routine,
Yes,
such
exactly.
a crucial part of our routine. I wouldn't go as far as to say crucial, but it's so deeply woven into our routine that we don't even pay a second mind to it.
Maybe a necessity? No, not a necessity.
No, not necessity. What I mean by this is notifications the moment we wake up, the decisions we have to make, the screens we look at, all
It's
the
a blur. It's
advertisements,
a
it
blur.
it all
Yeah.
becomes a blur,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah, yeah. No, no, 100%. I think that yeah, if you're constantly stimulated and loaded by all these different other things that are going on, you're not actually sitting with yourself. And
And it's so natural in our day-to-day lives now that we don't even
yeah,
consider it a problem.
yeah, and that's probably why a lot of people are going to their therapist nowadays is because that hour that they have or the 30 minutes that they have with their therapist is the only time they can sit down and actually talk with their thoughts. So it's completely true. Emotional labor, mental multitasking, which is everything you just talked about, along with our food environment and our natural environment, how what kind of screens do we have around us, the people we have around us when we go to the grocery store, what are our decisions? Do we have whole foods? Do we have natural foods, local foods, all these different decisions. Depends on what grocery store you sit at or shop at. Um, but it comes down to there's a lack of real downtime. And I would love it if you could expand a little bit more on what it is between real and fake.
Now, what people think fake downtime is, what we are calling fake downtime, is, coming home from work and just going on their phone while they eat a meal, right? Maybe even while brushing their teeth, they're on their phone. Now, the reason this is called fake downtime is because it's still adding stress onto it's still adding stress onto your day-to-day activities, right? What I mean by that is your entire workday full of work, full of stress. Then you come home and you have this downtime, but you're just poisoning it with media and screens and artificial light, opposed to real downtime, you know, reading a book, going outside, breathing air, brushing your teeth with your left hand, which you touched on a little bit in our last case study.
Well,
And
not to cut you off, but I think the main idea of this, just to overstate, is you are at work for 8 hours handling probably hundreds of tasks at work, whether you're working, a waiter job when you're handling hundreds of customers and dishes flying over and this is not heated and complaints and stuff like that, or you're handling a retail job when you're handling thousands of boxes while helping out customers while your manager is yelling at you. There are so many things you're handling at work, and then you get home from that 8 hour shift, you come home
you're
and
still putting
stress
more
on the brain.
things stress on the brain, more things for your brain to keep track of.
Exactly. So that comes down to there's a lack of real downtime. The only downtime people get is during sleep. But then when we touched back on the other topic, people are not getting the sleep that they need. So where are
Absolutely.
they getting the downtime? This comes down to why do people actually blame themselves? You know, people think they're lazy or unmotivated, then they try harder, push more, and add routines. Now, I think this would be a great topic for my associate to talk a little bit more on because I think you touched on it in our first case study.
100%. People do think they are lazy and unmotivated, and they do try to push harder and add more routines. However, that has the complete opposite effect than
Yeah,
what they are
100%.
intending. Why? Because the key to actually improving these aspects of your life is not trying to solve the problem all at once.
Mm-hmm.
What people need to understand is that it's a process, right? You didn't get um this chronic social media use, this chronic stress overnight. No, it built up over a course of days, weeks, months, right? And that's what people seem to misunderstand about creating new habits to improve certain aspects of their life.
Yeah, and there's so many people on social media who talk about like, yo, don't do this, or literally the video we just talked about yesterday, the case study that we just talked about here, why health advice is so confusing. Is because you got people on social media telling you this and then this and then this, and it's so conflicting. And guess what? It's a lot about just people telling you to do more, right? And people listen to that advice and they do more, and then they just get more stress added to them. It doesn't help them in the long run.
And
So
that's why routines like those don't stick.
exactly. And that's why people often blame themselves, is because after adding all these things, they it just worsens their exhaustion. So trying harder is not always the solution when the problem is depletion. That's the number one thing. Now,
100% agree.
can we get into a little bit what we've been talking about these past 3 days? How there are so many missing parts in the system where maybe health advice is very confusing, or the case study we're doing right now, how people are just exhausted and burnt out now. You know, the health
Right.
systems. Let me just touch down. The health systems react to the breakdowns, but not to the slow drain that people are currently experiencing right now.
Right. Well, what I believe is that, well, from what I've seen, is most of what people will see on self improvement is overnight fixes. And like we just said, overnight fixes aren't real. It's a process, right?
100%.
And that process is kind of like this in between state from point A being the low and point B being the high, or the better life, better result, better routine you want, right? And this in between state is kind of the most confusing part, and where a lot of people on social media will try to take advantage, right? And spread misinformation. And that's something that, as we're building with Evernorth, that's something that we want to avoid completely, right? The confusion. We want to break the gap and get you from point A to point B in the most efficient, effective manner.
Yeah.
Do you understand where I'm getting at?
No, 100%. And that in between state is exactly what we're trying to get at. That so listen, as we talked about today, this whole entire video, improvement and the process is everything that we're about. Is that it's improving slowly within the process, right? When you have that chronic stress and stuff like that, a lot you go to the doctor, they might give you pills, for depression or anxiety or whatever that might be going on. They start with the extremes. But maybe we could start with something more preventative. And again, like we mentioned in past 3 videos, and we will continue to mention, it starts with awareness, habits, environment, and consistency of all those three, right? So, in the end, that gap before something breaks, that is what we care about at Evernorth. And I
Right.
think that's what people are missing. And I just want to close on something. And if you have any closing statements, you can end it there and say it there. But the overview of everything, people are burned out, and we can tell. We can tell. We notice. Public notice. You notice, but you have no clue where to start. And that's the missing part that we need to figure out here.
100% agree. Couldn't have said it better myself.
Okay. Well, again, thank you guys for joining us on this case study. We'll make sure to keep on uploading each new topics every day, following modern environment and everything that's going on to help you guys each better every day. Besides that, it's Evernorth, and we'll catch you guys later. Bye bye.